The mountain air in Pine Ridge, Colorado, usually tastes like freedom and ancient pine. But as I stood on the porch of the cabin my grandfather built in 1963, the air tasted like ozone and impending rain. Gravel crunched, a sharp, skeletal sound, as a silver Mercedes SUV prowled up the drive. Out stepped Brenda Hartwell. Her designer hiking boots, pristine and overpriced, crushed the pine needles my grandfather had taught me to respect. She didn't walk, she colonized. "You don't belong here," she said, her voice a polished blade. "Hand over those keys, now." I'm Miles Blackwood. For 23 years, I've built military-grade security systems for people who have very expensive secrets. I've wired fortresses for tech moguls and ranchers protecting cattle from modern-day rustlers. I know how to lock a door so thoroughly that even God needs a warrant. "Not happening, Brenda," I said. Her smile turned ice gold. "Keep them then, but I'm calling the police." 20 minutes later, the blue and red lights fractured the mountain twilight. Brenda had reported me for illegally possessing stolen keys to my own inherited property. I stood there, under the gaze of neighbors who had gathered like vultures, presenting deeds and probate papers to deputies who looked embarrassed to be there. She wanted a show, fine, but Brenda didn't realize she was playing with a man who understands the flow of power, both electrical and legal. When she left, I didn't just change the locks. I began wiring a trap. The cabin and the conspiracy. My grandfather, Miles Blackwood, was a man of creative solutions. He built this cabin with hand-hewn logs and a stone foundation quarried from the very mountain it sat upon. He taught me that locks keep honest people honest, but dishonest folks require something more intricate. When he died at 91, the inheritance was a clean $800,000 piece of paradise. No liens, no debt, just 40 acres of old-growth forest. Brenda Hartwell, a former corporate lawyer turned HOA tyrant, saw it differently. She had moved from Denver 5 years ago and within 6 months turned the Pine Ridge HOA into her personal fiefdom. 2 days after the police incident, she returned with a clipboard clutched like a riot shield. "Mr. Blackwood, your cabin violates aesthetic standards. The log exterior is inconsistent. The solar panels are eyesores. And that truck," she gestured to my grandfather's 1970 Ford, "is a blight." "This property predates your HOA by 30 years, I reminded her. "The Pine Ridge HOA has full jurisdiction," she countered, her eyes predatory. "You have 60 days to comply. Estimated costs for rehabilitation are $45,000. If you fail, we place a lien, then a forced sale." It wasn't about the logs, it was a land grab. The darker current. I spent the next week in the basement of the county records office, breathing in dust and stale coffee. I found the glitch. Colorado law requires HOA charters to renew every 25 years. Pine Ridge's original 1962 charter had expired in 1987. Brenda was ruling with monopoly money. But the rabbit hole went deeper. I cross-referenced property sales and found a shell company, Mountain Vista Development. They were buying up properties at 40% below market value, properties that had conveniently been hit with compliance violations weeks before. The registered agent for Mountain Vista, Rick Donovan, Brenda's live-in boyfriend. While I dug through paperwork, Brenda turned up the heat. She launched a social media campaign, painting me as an unstable hermit. She used manipulated photos of my security cameras, claiming I was running a militant surveillance compound. Then came the death by 1,000 paper cuts. The fire inspector. Someone reported my solar array as a tinderbox. The power company. An anonymous tip claimed I was stealing from the grid. The environmental agency. Reports of chemical runoff into the trout stream. Every inspector left my property shaking their head. My work wasn't just up to code, it was the gold standard. But Brenda didn't need a conviction. She just needed to create a stink that would justify an emergency seizure. The midnight smoking gun. Tuesday to 17 a.m. The infrared sensors on my perimeter flared to life on my monitor. Most people see black and white. I see heat signatures. Two figures moved through the trees. They weren't just trespassing. They were carrying small, heavy plastic bags. I watched through a 4K thermal lens as Rick Donovan and a hired hand began planting evidence near my electrical shed, precursor chemicals and glassware designed to look like a mobile meth lab. They thought they were in the blind spot. They didn't know I'd installed ghost cameras, fiber optic lenses the size of a pinhead, hidden in the bark of the trees. I didn't call the local police. In a town this small, Brenda might have a friend on the force. I called the Colorado Bureau of Investigation, CBI, and the FBI's White-Collar Crime Division. I had Eleanor Denver's Manila folder, a record of 6 other families Brenda had defrauded. I had the expired charter, and now I had high-definition footage of her boyfriend committing a felony on my dirt. The reckoning. The emergency HOA meeting was the following night. Brenda was in her element, standing before 40 terrified residents, her silver bob gleaming under the community center lights. "We have reason to believe Miles Blackwood is engaging in criminal manufacturing on his property," she announced, her voice trembling with faked concern. "For the safety of our children, we are moving for an immediate injunction and property seizure." I walked in the back door. The room went silent. "Funny you should mention criminal manufacturing, Brenda," I said, tossing a stack of folders onto the front table. "Because I have 200 hours of footage showing Rick Donovan manufacturing, a crime scene on my land at your direction." The color drained from her face, leaving her looking like a marble statue of a ghost. "I also have the 1987 expiration notice for this HOA," I continued, my voice carrying the weight of 23 years of professional precision. "Every fine you've collected, every lien you've placed, and every compliance fee funneled into Mountain Vista Development is a federal wire fraud charge." The side doors opened. It wasn't the local deputies this time. It was the CBI. The aftermath. They took Brenda out in handcuffs. She didn't look like a corporate powerhouse anymore. She looked like a cornered fox. Rick was arrested 20 minutes later at their $2 million mansion, where they found the rehabilitation funds sitting in an offshore-linked account. The federal charges were a buffet: wire fraud, filing false police reports, conspiracy, and racketeering. Because she'd used the mail to send her fake violations, the USPS inspectors joined the party. You don't mess with the mail. I'm back at the cabin now. The white trucks are gone. The air is clear again. I spent the morning installing a new gate. It's not for Brenda. She won't be seeing sunlight without bars in front of it for a long time. It's for the memory of my grandfather. I'm keeping his creative solutions alive. What's your worst HOA nightmare? How deep does the corruption go in your neck of the woods? Drop your state and your story below. Would you like me to expand on the specific, creative, security traps Miles set up? Or should we look into the legal fallout for the other families Brenda scammed?